People didn't have cars. You were not allowed to have a car, so there were none. There were only ambassador taxi cabs. There was no television, there were no telephones. It was like stepping back 100 years in time for us who come from the West, even back then. So I studied with a yogi who studied all of this stuff back around 1910 to 1920 when he was in his teenage years. And then he went to England, became a medical doctor, and did all these other things. And in the end went back to India to teach yoga because it was the only thing that actually was a good solution even to medical problems. So he taught 9 forms of yoga, and this geometry side, the sacred geometry that I'm talking about, leads you to inner vision, where you start to see not just mandalas but information that comes with the mandalas. As in an ayahuasca journey or something, you're seeing colors and patterns and forms, but you're learning something at the same time, getting insights about your life or whatever. So it's a way of going into inner vision, inner learning, intuition. Tuition means learning also, and intuition is how we actually access a lot of the yogic information. So I'll start with simplicity of there's 9 numbers. 0 doesn't count because it has means nothing. So the 9 numbers of 1 to 9 are connected to 9 chakras, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are in the body. And then the 7th one is the crown chakra, and it's from the crown chakra that we leave our body and go back out into the universe, which we have a galaxy which is made of stars, and stars are all radiating the energy, and on the other side we have a planetary system, solar system, which is the planets that are taking and gathering the energy. So these are the 2 polarities at the universal level. There's energy being created and radiated, and there's energy being condensed into matter. So this is an ongoing cycle. And when you leave your body and go back out into that space-time continuum, you experience the vibration of all that energy, which is amazingly blissful and orgasmic. And the yogic and whole Eastern perspective of life is to go back to that state. And when I left Canada back in 1969, I was looking for some kind of a purpose that was missing in Western culture. And it's still very much missing, and because of that it's gone into consumerism, absolute consumerism, and all of the problems of the world. And I discovered in the East, in Buddhism, Hinduism, and everything here, that the purpose of life is spiritual, not religious. Buddhism isn't a religion, it's a psychology system. That's amazing. But it's all about understanding mind and consciousness embodied in a body. And the body is a small part of it. And in yoga, the body and all the postures and the asanas that have become westernized and amazingly popular are 5% of what we need to know about yoga. It's a mind science. It's a system of psychology. And if you look at the classic texts on yoga, the Yoga Sutras or the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there's very little mentioned about positions and posture. It's all about the mind. So this is what we deal with in yoga. And it brings us to an understanding mind over matter. This is the reality, and Western science, if you're looking deeply into it in quantum physics, has come back around to the same conclusion, that consciousness and mind actually decide what the energy is going to become. And in physics, they say reality is made of waves of possibility, which are electromagnetic waves, and they only snap into atoms and molecules when we are paying attention and expecting them to do that. So we are actually manifesting the world as we see it, minute by minute, second by second, and in physics it's microsecond by microsecond. And this is actually stated in the Yoga Sutras. as you read through all of that. It's amazing. Anyway, in the Yantra Yoga is the way of understanding how all of these things relate and come together and how they're all connected. And that's what geometry does, is it brings things into a picture. So we have, at the bottom level, we have the first chakra, which is connected to Yantra, or to Hatha Yoga. And this is the physical. It deals with your body, how to deal with your body, how to energize your body, how to make it healthy, how to feed it, and all of these things. Everything about your body, including all of the postures, are part of Hatha Yoga, which is just one of 9. The second one is Swadhisthana Chakra, and this is connected to Jnana Yoga, which is really about the mind and the emotions, understanding the connection between thoughts, emotions, from there to body chemistry, but it's a very mental thing. So if you're practicing Jnana Yoga, you don't need to have any postures at all. You can be sitting in your chair, and it's a very intellectual, contemplative form of yoga in India, and people who practice this can't be bothered with doing postures. Although in India, everybody sits this way anyway. They didn't have chairs. So the classical Padmasana, the lotus, and that are there for everybody. And those are the ones mentioned in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the Yoga Sutras. So it's intellectual to the extent of being very observing the mind and how the mind works, how it functions, and how we go from consciousness to body consciousness to seeing the mind games, the imagination, and everything. So it's much more connected to the Yoga Sutras, actually, because it's an understanding and an education about how your mind works. And knowing that puts you in a whole different position as far as manifesting what you want in your life. You start to realize mind over matter and how much mind is directing everything that goes on eventually. So the third form connected to Manipura is called pranayama, which essentially means control of energy, and which comes in the form of breathing techniques, because as we breathe, we are gathering the energy, and with breathing techniques, you can direct that energy to different parts, to different chakras, which then connects to different glands, different organs. And then there's a whole system of how to breathe, and then the breathing techniques, of which I know and teach 72 different breathing techniques after learning how to breathe. So that's a lot. So it's a progressive education in how to use the breathing to control the energy, which then controls the glands and organs in your body and controls what you're thinking and feeling. So it's pranayama, it's control of the energy, and the breathing is used to access that control, to develop it. And it works very well. But again, it's progressive. First you learn how to breathe, and then there's techniques of breathing in, breathing out, retentions in, retentions out, and then there's mathematical proportions that go, you're breathing in for a certain count, and you're breathing out for an equal count, and then you're breathing in and breathing out, and hi, welcome back. Breathing in and out and holding for a certain proportion in the middle, like breathing in for a count of 8, holding for 4, breathing out for 8, and holding out for 4. That's one technique. And that one you need to work with for a certain number of hours, days, or even years. And in India, you're given a technique like this, and you're told, okay, go and sit in the cave somewhere and practice this for a year. Come back and tell me what happened. So you need to observe what happens to your mind, to your emotions, to your body, as you're practicing these little techniques. And there's many of them. As I said, you start with one. We did a retreat before, and we do it online at this point, and we can do it again. It's called Ekadasi. Some of you know it. It's a breathing technique that takes 11 days to perform. Every day it's a little bit more, and it's designed to dig into your subconscious and bring up all the memories that you've been suppressing, things that you've forgotten about. So the progression goes from learning how to breathe to looking at your past and then moving into going forward in manifestation and how to empower things. And then you apply that to healing certain glands and organs. There's breathing techniques for this chakra, that chakra. So your pancreas being connected to Manipura. If you have a pancreatic imbalance of some sort, you use a specific breathing technique and some postures to tune it up, bring it back in balance. And this is all capabilities that we all have if we practice the techniques, and completely in opposition to Western medicine, which tries to control everything for you using chemicals that they make in their pharmaceutical factories. And in yoga, it's the opposite, where you find there's something a little bit wrong here, so you have techniques and methods to correct it. And you are responsible for doing the practice. And then you find, oh, the problem's gone. So let's pause, take a deep breath. Notice when you're listening to someone, you forget to breathe. I'm not here to take your breath away. I'm here to help you breathe more. So that's pranayama. Pranayama yoga. And again, it's a whole study in itself, and it's a progress of techniques that you need to apply to your life to change everything from how you're breathing, how your glands and organs functioning, how your emotions feel, and how you think. And it's the method of controlling the energy that's doing everything else, because ultimately everything's made of energy. So that's the third form of yoga. The fourth one is called karma yoga. And everyone thinks, oh my God, karma. Have I got good karma or bad karma? So it's a study of cause and effect applied to your life. What you do has a reaction and a consequence. So apply that how you're breathing. If you're breathing deeply and fully and well, you're going to be healthier. So the effect, the cause is you're breathing deeper, the effect is you're going to be healthier, you're going to have more vitality. So you look at every angle of life, including your social relationships, how you treat people. Are you treating people with love and compassion and good intentions to help them, or are you trying to get something from them? Everything has karma attached to it. If you're trying to get something from people, you will encounter people who want to get something from you, and you're manifesting a different kind of a life. So ideally, you understand that, and then you start helping other people in whichever way you can, either by teaching yoga or by helping them build their house or whatever. Good karma. You understand that everything you do is going to create a lifestyle and a life around you that is a reflection of that giving or taking. So taking becomes the negative side, and giving. And when you're dealing with karma yoga and you get into the fourth chakra, you're in a place where you're tapping into a force of universal energy that is blissful and loving, and that kind of radiates out from you. So there's more of a giving aspect to it. And in the world of chakras, again, each one is a specific kind of force which we study, and the first one is gravity, which pulls your body together and holds it together. If you have too much of this energy, you keep grabbing and to take more and more of everything. It's the nature of the energy. And if you don't balance it out with the fourth chakra of give, then your life becomes more taking than giving. And if you're too much in the fourth chakra, it's too much giving, and you end up losing yourself and depleting yourself. So all of these things need to be held in balance, and balancing of these chakras is an energetic game which with pranayama you learn to do fairly simply, but the practice needs to be there. The time to put into it. Vishuddha chakra, the voice. So this one is connected to not just your voice and your vibration of your voice and what you're speaking, but also your thinking, which is the voice in your head. It's all vibration. And vibration is the essential force of the fifth chakra. And vibration essentially brings us into the electromagnetic world, because the electromagnetic energy is always in a state of vibration. From that, the vibration snaps into electrons or protons, etc. But essentially, we're living in an ocean of these vibration, which is the fifth element, called ether in the ancient days, electromagnetic in modern days. Hello, welcome. Late or not. So the form of yoga connected is called Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga deals with mind, technique, vibration, mantra as one, and gets into the visual aspect, using the mind and mental techniques to create, to manifest, to achieve things in the world. So at the second level of Jnana Yoga, it was also mental, and it was about understanding how your mind works and how thought and emotions are very interrelated. One leads to the other, and you can get into a circle of positive thinking and feeling good, or negative thinking and feeling bad. Here you're dealing with the empowerment of the mind and how to use it to imagine what you want, and then to empower the image with certain vibrations, which comes into the category of mantra. It's dealing with sound, directly sound, not as songs or kirtan or singing hymns to the Lord or whatever. It's specifically sound formulas and frequencies. So it's, again, getting into the mathematics of sound itself, the length of a wave, etc., the frequency, which is the number of waves per second. So all of this comes into Raja Yoga, and working with, I mentioned, the visualization techniques fall into the Raja Yoga system. Learning to empower your mind to imagine, visualize, and empower your imagination to manifest. It can be your health in your body, and then the life around you, the relationships, the house you want, where you want to live. You learn how to imagine and manifest that from the inside out. So this is all part of Raja Yoga. Then the sixth one, Ajna Chakra, is Yantra Yoga. This is the very intellectual, mathematical side of it that explains why things are the way they are, why we go through cycles of time that are good and bad, and there's a calendar system that is part of it, like the Mayan calendar. But I think it's a little more simple and understandable than the Mayan calendar. And it deals with the chakra forces: gravitations, covalence, transformation, repulsion, electromagnetic, magnetic, and then consciousness, the seventh one. And we get into esoteric realities beyond that, like time and space and past and future. So by understanding the mathematics of it, you go from when you are born, you come in on a certain day, like in astrology, but you're dealing with the chakra energies. When you come in, you step into a chakra. And this is your chakra for life. It is the empowerment that you have access to. And we all have different chakras. Or 1 out of every 9 people have the same one. So that's called the birth path, or Dharma Mega. And it tells you what energy you have at your disposal for life. So if you're born into the first chakra, you will be materialistically minded. You will be concerned with having a good, healthy body. You will like doing things physically. Being successful in the material world will be important to you. Having a home base, stability. As opposed to third chakra, which is more spontaneous and travel and doing and changing. So you are motivated in your life by the chakra energy itself. And you don't see this, you just are who you are. And you're not always sure why, but you have certain habits and certain capabilities and desires and drives. So your consciousness is going to go. And it will be at home either in the first chakra, or if you're born into a number 9, you are more out in space, drawn to higher philosophy, less connected with the material world. So understanding the forces of the chakras is kind of important even in understanding yourself, your motivations, your personality. Each one of them, each chakra, has a set of qualities determined by the energy, characteristics, which become psychological characteristics. We go from the force, the power that's driving you, to all the characteristics that are manifested from that in your mind, in your personality, in your emotions. And you learn to see how that too can be balanced out. And in yoga, the idea is you're born into one chakra and you have that one, but then you need to work on the others. The idea is to have all of the chakras flowering, opening, and have access to all these energies, which is not something you learn to do in a teacher's training. It's a month long. It's more of a lifetime process. And I saw that and understood that when I went to India. I didn't think of being a teacher or just going to become a yogi. If it takes 40 years, that's fine. So 40 years has come and gone, and that was, yeah, cool. Okay, I get it. After 40 years, it was easier. Anyway, from the mathematics of there, you're born with certain characteristics into a chakra, and then you have this revolution and rotation of the chakras. They change. Every day, there's a different chakra influence. Every time the earth is spinning, you're going into a different chakra influence. So you go from gravitation to covalence, which goes from thinking about yourself to the second chakra. In chemistry and physics, it's called covalence. It's an energy that brings atoms together to make molecules at the very scientific level. At the social level as humans, it draws people together. It's an attraction that is temporary. There's some kind of a exchange and communication that happens, and then things can change and you move on to something else or someone else. So understanding these forces, when you're in a 2-cycle day, you're going to be meeting people that you know or that you haven't met yet. In a 1-cycle day, you're trying to get a hold of someone and they just don't answer their phone. A 2-cycle day runs around, they call you. And when you see this and you have a calendar that tells you what's what, when things are happening, you start to realize that there's kind of a mathematical unfolding of the energies of the universe, which includes us, because we are part of the universe. So every day is a different chakra, but it only lasts for a day. Now we have every month also has a specific chakra. So that influences you for 30 days. You have the influence of either gravitation or a loving feeling of expansion, or your mind is very active. It's a 5 chakra. You've got energy and information coming in. You're thinking a lot. Everyone has a specific influence on your mind, on your body, on the glands and organs, etc. And when you're understanding this, then you can go with the flow. If it's a 1-cycle day, you're doing a little bit more hatha yoga and physical things. If it's a 2-cycle day or month or year, you're more focused on this, because this is the energy that's coming from the universe to you, and you have access to this. So if you're in the flow, you understand it, you know what to do with it, what's the best thing. So 1-cycle month, you do more hatha yoga. 2-cycle month, you're doing more jnana yoga, which is more contemplation of what's going on in your mind and your emotions. 3-cycle, you're doing more active pranayama and using that energy to tune yourself up or to make changes in your life or whatever. 4-cycle also brings in 4th chakra is connected to your autoimmune system. So your healing forces are more active in a 4-cycle day, 4-cycle month, or 4-cycle year. And if you know that, then you're not going to be out totally indulging and doing stupid things because your body's trying to heal. It'll get sick if you're not cooperating with healing. And this is the karma cycle. And karma yoga is number 4. So coming to understand all of these different parts of the reality in which we're living is part of this study. And the intellectual study of the mathematics and geometry can become an important part of it. Again, I've been playing with this, making calculations and calculating many things for people for 50 years. And I can say there's a lot of accuracy in this system. But you need to know how to interpret the chakra energies, what kind of influences they have. And as Swami Gitananda, who taught me this, was saying, it's not to be developed into like a fortune-telling system, which it can be because you can really see what's coming. It's a study of the chakras. And if you know what chakra you're in today, what you are for your life, then you can adjust and adapt to what's there and be more simply in the flow of what you have access to and let that flow through you. And you understand more of what that kind of energy does when you go through a 1-year cycle, or when you go through a 2-year cycle and you're meeting all kinds of people. There's so much more social activity. Why? Is because social energy is number 2. And in that cycle, you will be influenced socially and influencing whether you want to or not. And if you're aware of it, then you're one step ahead. And the name of the game is to become aware, to become more and more conscious of all of these things, of how it all works, of how it fits together. So Yantra Yoga is a mental awareness of how this works. And we get into that from there, the measurement of time cycles, into the geometry of how mathematics and geometry are related. If you've ever looked into that, and trigonometry and whatnot, angles and distances make certain patterns. And the patterns have to do with, these are all mandalas. So you've got a 4-petaled lotus, a 6-petaled lotus, a 10-petaled lotus, a 12, 16, and 2. This is all telling a story about how the energy works, about how many vibrations per second there are. It's a whole complicated study of electromagnetics, vibration. And if you've looked at any sound things, we'll show maybe some sound videos. If you take sound and you put sand on a plate and a speaker underneath, the sand will display into mandalas, geometric forms. So the connection between vibration, sound, and geometry can be seen and demonstrated. And there's videos on this you can find on YouTube these days. But this takes us into the frequency, the sound, and the mantras for each specific chakra, and why there are a certain number of petals for each, why the geometry is this and that and the other thing. And it goes further into understanding we're living in an electromagnetic ocean that we cannot see. We only see less than 1%, called visible light. But the rest is all same electromagnetic vibration. When it crosses at specific angles, it creates either gravity or repulsion or vibration that carries information. All of this is part of the study. So going back to your chakra that you're born in, there are 3 other parts to it. The month you are born determines the secondary chakra that is influencing you for the first 27 years of your life. This is called the educative period, the student years, when you're learning and absorbing everything about life. Then there's a shift at age 27, and in astrology it's 28. Saturn returns, which is another shift. So around that same time, there's a shift in your chakras, and the chakra that influenced you for 27 years kind of subsides, and you have another one opening up. So your power changes. And if that's changing from a 2 to a 3, that's a radical shift that you feel in your personality, in your behavior, what you feel like doing. You feel different. You are changing from the inside out. And that goes for 27 years also. After which there's another shift. At age 54, you go into a third chakra. The month you're born in determines one, the date you're born in determines the second, and the year you're born in determines the third. So these 3 periods make up your life. And then in the 4th stage, you go off into your spiritual evolution, no longer connected to this world, or maybe. So these are 3 periods, 3 chakras, and they all add up to make your 4th chakra, which is your birth path, the one that lasts you a whole lifetime. So those are the realities that you have, that you are, and then from there into the time cycles of every year, there's a different chakra influence, pushing you, directing you, motivating you, shifting your consciousness a little bit from where you are by nature into a certain influence that's coming from the universe itself. So understanding and knowing that, you can again be in harmony with it or fight against it. There are energies that are compatible in the chakras, and there are some that are quite conflicting. I mentioned 2 and 3. 2 is very social. It's always considering the people around you. 1 is very individual. It's me. And 3 is an empowerment that drives me to do things, whether you like it or not. So the difference between being in the 2nd chakra and always carrying, what do you think? What should I do? To 3, it says, I'll do it anyway. I don't give a shit what you think. And there's a power that drives that kind of thinking and drives you to do things in a way that is spontaneous and overriding others. So again, understanding you're going into a 3, you can take a deep breath and slow down and say, okay, I'm going to do what I need to do, but I will ask people if they're okay with it. Rather than just 3 is the energy of the conquistadors. The powers that went around conquering the world and wiping out civilizations and planting a new flag. This is 3rd chakra energy. It's overbearing. So then we get into the 4th and the 5th, which are getting into the higher chakras of higher knowledge and more feeling and empathetic vibrations and the understanding of how things work. The 7th chakra brings us out into a level of consciousness beyond the mind, beyond the body. So meditation ideally brings us to that place of being conscious and aware of a state that is beyond your mind. When you can turn off the mind and have consciousness above it, you start to connect with the whole consciousness of the universe. And that brings a feeling of elevation, of freedom, of blissfulness, a feeling that, well, we are eternal and infinite consciousness anyway. So all the little problems in this world no longer matter. So ideally in yoga, you bring the energy from the bottom all the way up and your consciousness is propelled out into the universe. This is the goal of yoga. Now you can take this energy of the universe and bring it down into the body all the way down to the 1st chakra and empower yourself physically in the world. So you learn to do all of these things in yoga. You all know about tuning up the body and doing asanas. Where does the energy that makes up your body come from? It's part of this whole electromagnetic ocean. Again, as I mentioned, science has finally come around to realizing, yeah, it's true. Everything is made of energy. Energy is conscious. Energy has consciousness. And the underlying field of the universe, the ultimate reality, is just consciousness. then consciousness imagines this whole world into existence. From consciousness through mind, imagination to energy to matter. This is the way it goes. So, in the Yantra Yoga 4-day, we already talked for a while. So we go into understanding the chakras that you have, and an understanding of the characteristics of each of these chakras, and how to actually calculate that. And then through observation, you look at yourself and you see whether that's true or not. And a better study is you look at the people around you and you calculate what are their chakras and what are the characteristics of their chakras. So you learn to analyze people from a mathematical perspective, and then you can you'll see that things actually fit quite well. And you need to observe, you calculate, and you see what are the probabilities or possibilities, and then you observe to see, is this real or not? And as I said, in 50 years of doing this and observing it, I say it's real. So this is part of what we do. Then the next day we go into the time cycles. First you have to understand more about the chakras themselves, these forces, these energies. And then looking at time and how we go through revolutions of time. I mentioned the month, the day, and the year. And then there's different lengths of each of these forces. They're not all the same. But how that influences you through time. In the first chakra, in time cycles, it's the seed planting. It's the beginning of something. In the second chakra, you plant the seed, and the second period, the roots go out and look for water. So it sprouts. So in human affairs, you begin something, and then the second chakra comes in, you're expanding socially to make connections you need to do your project, etc. And the third chakra comes along and empowers everything, and you see how to do that. So knowing these things, each one, every day, first of all we study the chakras' influences and see what you are, and then what's the time period in your life? What are you going through now? And you can look back on your life when you calculate, use the calendar. What happened to you last year and the year before? And you'll start to see that, oh, okay, I understand there was a certain energy that was trying to heal my body and I wasn't cooperating and I got really sick. Or you look at different events in your life, catastrophic events or good times, and you see that they all came at the right time. And you start to realize there is a time. There is a cosmic clock. And Yantra Yoga is the key to that clock. So we go from there. Also, what I didn't mention in the thing we wrote up is that there's name. Your name is a mantra. What people call you is a sound that influences your mind. So that brings in certain qualities and characteristics depending on the name. You learn to calculate that. What's the mantra that comes out of your name? How is that influencing you mentally, emotionally, and physically? So that's another aspect of it. And then we go into another level called the Dharma cycle. This is all part of a karma cycles, the karmic calendar. It determines what's happening to you in the material world, what's happening in your body, what's happening in your glands and organs, at your hormonal level. The dharmic cycles are what's happening to you spiritually. How is your consciousness evolving? So these are actually separate calendars that begin at one point and are calculated from there, but they're going in. One of them is governing everything that's happening to you in the material world, and the other one is your conscious evolution. So it's another calculation. It's a different kind of a calendar a little bit, and it complements one to the other. And on the 5th day of the course, we go into the geometry of how to apply the geometry and how to use the geometry to make color and form into something significant. And this sacred geometry was something known in ancient cultures. It was captivated by the Egyptians who built pyramids in specific proportions with mathematics. And all temples and churches and cathedrals are all designed with a certain knowledge of this sacred. Why 4 petals in the first chakra? Why are we sitting in a pyramid that has 4 sides? First chakra. So all of this is, again, an understanding of how things unfold from the mathematics of electromagnetic waves into the geometry of color and form, directions and spaces. And we learn to actually make a little mandala, and every one of us has a specific mandala, which is like a tuning fork for you that can be used to focus and concentrate who and what you are. Take another deep breath. Let go. So I've talked for 40, 50 minutes. Now, any questions? Yeah.
So you have been like studying and teaching yoga for 50 years. What do you think about methods used in Sahaja yoga?
What do I think about?
Sahaja yoga.
Sahaja.
Oh, for sure. Are you familiar with this? You spend a lot of time in India and around the world.
How do you define Sahaja yoga?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm asking you what you mean. What is Sahaja yoga to you?
It's a lot of method to reach self-realization.
Yeah? That's good. That's what it's all about. Self-realization.
Okay.
Getting to know yourself. Okay. And all of these studies, these forms of yoga are all about getting to know different aspects of yourself. So it's all self-study. And if you go back to the basics of the yama niyama, which is the first step, the first limb of yoga, it's self-study, the swadhyaya. So again, there's many forms of yoga. 95% of what's taught in the world is all just the first chakra, hatha yoga. And when you get to India, it kind of was the other way around, where they didn't pay so much attention to the hatha. It was more about the spiritual evolution, knowing yourself and evolving to connect your consciousness to the bigger consciousness of the universe, which is your higher self, in a sense. So how much of this is new to you? Have you ever heard about it before? It's old stuff for me. Again, it's one part of yoga that mathematically and in geometry brings the pieces of the puzzle together so that you see the bigger picture. And that's part of what happens with the understanding of the mind. So it's a very mental part of yoga.
You said like everyone is born into one chakra.
Yeah.
Is there like a rough estimation how that corresponds to the astrology signs? Like for example, Aries, which is the first sign, is that the first chakra? Or I don't know, is there like a way to map?
There's correlations. Yeah, talk to Joanne about that. We're doing a lot of discussion on how these forces mingle. When you're dealing with Yantra, you're dealing with solar power. And astrology deals a lot with more the lunar power or the reflections of that energy. The moon doesn't have any light, right? You look at it, you see it, but it's not, that's an illusion. What you're seeing is sunlight bouncing off the moon. So the actual power comes from the sun. And the sun is the center of our solar system. And the calculation of all the sun energies is Yantra Yoga. They use the number 27 years. 27 is a number. The sun rotates once every 27 days. That's where the number 27 comes from. They've actually, go ahead.
I was curious if you know something about mathematics based of number 15. So there is like this new, I don't know if you ever heard about that, this new discover that the mathematics based on 10 is like conspiracy theory, like,
Yeah.
set up by government to make people stupid, and like the real mathematics using in ancient times was based on 15, 1, 5. Have you heard about this?
No, that's a new one. But the base 9 system was used by the Mayans, the Egyptians, and Hindus. 9 forces, and connected to these 9 forces. So I'd have to research and look at the 15 to see how that fits in. But this is a system that really fits, and it has fit these different cultures, and it fits the universe. And again, observing for 50 years gives you a better insight. When I first discovered it, okay, sounds cool. I look back at my life for years going backwards. Wow, that fits. I had, accidents at all around the right times, and relationships at the right times also. Everything was on time. I didn't realize until then there was a time. And since then, I have been observing and calculating, and in teaching people, I've been teaching this also, and everybody's looking at their own cycles and their own chakras and realizing how much reality there is in this, and how much insight you can have about reality of you, your life, your spiritual development, all of these things. And in the practical side, as Swami Gitananda did not want to get into the fortune-telling side of, if you know that you're going into a 2 cycle next month and you're looking for a relationship, next month is the time you'll find it. And one of the interesting things is when you get to cycle number 8, 8 and 9, by the way, the chakras out there, pull your consciousness out to these places. But 9 is the giving, radiating energy that's radiating out in all directions. 8 is the receiving of that energy. So when you're in an 8th cycle, you're going to be receiving. And that applies in the karmic calendar, the karmic cycles. That's the day you go shopping, because everything will be half price. And I say this after 50 years of observation. If I'm going to buy something and it's something big, I'll do it in an 8th cycle, because it will unfold, it'll just be exactly what I want, and it'll be affordable.
You're going to show us how to count the days on this workshop.
Yeah. Yeah, on the second day we'll get into the calculating. And again, first of all, you have to understand what you're calculating. These are all energetic forces that go this way or that way, give you certain capabilities one day to the next, which changes every day. So doing the right thing at the right time is what you can learn to do. And then everything kind of unfolds very beautifully if you're at the right place at the right time. And then the other practices of yoga bring you into this place of synchronicity, where you're always at the right place at the right time. It kind of overrides this intellectual understanding, because you're intuitively at the right place at the right time. So this is the other aspects of yoga when you're doing all the breath work and the visualizations and the meditations. There's breathing techniques that align you into these time places where you will always be at the right place at the right time. You only have to do the practices, which requires some effort. But then you don't have to do much in the outer world, because things just fall into place. And that's part of the magic of yoga. And what brings us to being in a pyramid in Thailand, of all places. And being at the right place at the right time. Look at what's happening in the world out there. And, oh, this is a good place to be for this time period.
I just want to comment your question, because I have tried to connect them, astrology and Yantra, this last year, and actually like connect the sign with the chakra. It's not working, but it's a kind of complementary. So I have clients and I use both in the sessions, and it's more complementary because the Yantra calendar, the meaning of the things are different than astrology. And astrology considers much more details, like the planets and the degree, and many little details that Yantra is more like, there are details as well, but it's more like a big picture of the person, and then you can go to the day, the minute, the hour, but you can see for sure. You can do, for example, you can do your chart and your Yantra calendar, you can make connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did that my first year in India because I had picked up a book on astrology in some bookstore in Calcutta that showed how to do astrology in a simplified way, and then I learned about the yantra, and I spent 6 months doing charts and calculations for people, putting them together to the point. And I learned, I mean, talking about the yantra, you can go to the day, you can go to the hour, you can go to the minute. And I was calculating down to the minute what was going to happen. And it was accurate. I said, whoa, this is cool. Making people's charts and figuring out everything about their lives and their relationships and their ancestors and their mothers and da-da-da-da, and giving them charts. And some of them, oh shit, how can you see all that? I mean, there can be a high level of accuracy in these sciences of astrology and yantra. And one of the things Gitananda didn't want is this information getting into the wrong hands, like artificial intelligence and Bill Gates and whatever.
These 2 chakras out there, what are their names and how many petals do they have, or do they have petals?
Non-specific petals. Narayana and Brahmananda. 8 and 9, and they're 8 is on the left and 9 is on the right, and 7, 8, and 9 make the triangle of your consciousness flying out into this unmanifested world of possibilities, where you leave your body, you go into this place, and you can just manifest your dreams and live the dream and whatever without having a physical incarnation. The kingdom of heaven, put it that way, which you create, unless you got a lot of bad memories about yourself, and then you end up in hell, all of which are mental creations. Your mind contains your karma.
And when you're doing these breath techniques, you can get this kind of, is it as strong, like symbiotic as a psychedelic? Or
Yes.
It is.
It is, yeah. Yeah, and it's more controllable, and it's not as lasting. So with every breath you can maintain the state, and as soon as you let it go, you kind of ground back down. So this is what I learned with Swami Gitananda. It took me 4 months to get to a psychedelic state without anything. Fasting, detoxing, and lots of 8 hours of yoga, all kinds of yoga per day. And at the end of that I was thinking, whoa, this is looking pretty trippy. And so it's accessible. It's all in your own chemistry. I mean, ayahuasca will trigger the release of and the manufacture of DMT, etc. And yoga is just a natural way of doing all these things. And they're both valid. Like
Sure. Like the more purified that you are, the more that you can access this like that.
Yeah, yeah. And some of the tricks to access is if you sleep too much, if you eat too much, those are all very grounding. So sleeping more than 4 hours tones down the psychedelic vision. Eating makes you sleep more. So if you cut back on sleeping and eating, again, that's what I was doing at the ashrams. I was sleeping 4 hours and less and getting, whoa, okay, this is super trippy. The other thing is if you're sleeping less than 4 hours, the stiffness that you feel in your body in the morning is not there. It's during sleep that your body gets stiff and you got to work it out in your morning routine. If you don't sleep too much, you're the same when you wake up as when you went to bed. Flexible. Okay, now it's an hour plus of talking. Other questions or whatever?
Can you tell us how the structure of this workshop looked like? Because I couldn't find any information about it. Or someone... No, but we have the event of the course that's called Yantra Yoga course 5 days. But we can talk now, but there you can find all the program. Yeah. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
share as well.
When does it start?
Monday.
Next Monday to Friday. Yeah, 3 hours per day.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
9 to 12.
I like this kind of workshop.
Yeah, it's easy, and you'll be thinking about it and processing the information the rest of the day too, and probably calculating everybody you know.
And for who wants to learn more, we have the workshop online that we talk about more about the first, second, third, fourth, and 5 chakra. That you can talk a little bit what they can find there. It's online. And yeah, if you want to study more than Yantra, because this course will be specific about the Yantra and the calculations.
Yeah, so the online course she's talking about was a 5-week program. It started off being a 5-day workshop here, but people couldn't come, so it turned into a 5-week online workshop. So there's lots of videos, informative videos about the chakras and the body, and there's techniques, and there's flows and postures and breathing techniques, etc. All part of it with interesting videos and documentaries by physicists and medical doctors and things that are verifying the reality of the yogic perspective on life. So it's an interesting kind of introduction, and then there's further information going into higher chakras as we go along.
And
So
we're doing Zoom as well every 1 time per week, every Saturday, for who is in this course, that we can talk about.
Yeah, we have Zoom discussions every Saturday from people who are all over the world. So coordinating the time was a little hard. So as I said about yoga, it's a big study, and what you see in yoga classes is a little tidbit, tip of the iceberg. It's a deep study that can change whatever you want to do with your life, change from what you've been doing to what you want, and it's an empowering science of mind over matter. That's the reality of yoga. Yeah.
Last question, I promise. I just want to ask you everything. Because I know that your student of yours, Octavio, he's using, I think, this knowledge to create a yoga class per day. For example, when there is a day for something, he creates something per day.
Yeah, good.
So is it possible after this workshop that also we can use this knowledge to okay, today it's a class it's 4, so it's more chilling and more healing?
Yeah, definitely. That's very much part of it. That's the advantage of knowing this stuff, is the application to what you're doing in your day. Or how much yoga, what kind of yoga you should do today or tomorrow, when you should be indulging and having a great time, and when you should stop and fast and take a day off food, or when you should be communicating with people and when you should be sitting under a tree in the forest. Every one of them, if you're doing it at the right time, feels like, oh, right on. Doing the wrong thing at the right time is as bad as doing the right thing at the wrong time.
Yeah, just one point about this is nice, the idea, but each one has a different day. We have the collective day, but today could be a different chakra. That's your chakra of the day, because depend of your year and your month.
Yeah,
but
the calendar.
The collective is nice.
The calendars are all individual.
Yeah.
Your date, time, and year are different from the person next to you. You have your own personal calendar, which you will find if you observe and look at yourself and your life. Oh, okay, there is a clock.
It's something, it probably isn't something you want to look up easily in a data sheet. It's probably better to find it out by discovery and inspection, no?
Yeah, that verifies everything, and it's meant to be part of a self-study program. It's part of a yoga system.
So you're doing 1 week, 3 days, 3 hours a day? Or
It's 5 days.
5 weeks, 5 days.
And then 1 week, 5 days in the week. And then the online stuff, people do at their own pace. Yeah.
Fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and to continue, and there's different online programs to just to continue the education. As I said, it's a big education. Once you realize how much there is to know, it's like it is a master's degree. You master yourself, which is the ultimate goal of yoga. It's not about being a teacher of postures. It's about self-mastery. And that's a longer journey than just teaching a few things. Okay, yeah. We're over an hour, so.
Thank you.
Contemplate, think about what you want to do, and if you want to go further with this.